Before we delve into rethinking Revelation, I would first like to review just what the major interpretations of Revelation are. The purpose of this is twofold. First, so you will have a good grasp of just how complex and controversial this book is, and to be fair, so that you know what your options are as far as interpretations. Now, these interpretations can be characterized or divided by when the interpreter says that certain key events take place relative to the time of Christ. Now, these key events are the Great Tribulation, the Second Coming of Christ, and of course, the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Based on this definition, there are 5 major interpretations of Revelation. Full preterism, where all events are in the past. Partial preterism, where some events are in the past and some in the future. Historicism, where some events are in the past, present, and future. Futurism, where all the events are in the future. And idealism, where there are no specific events in the past, present, or future. As the old saying goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So, the following are timelines and summaries that describe each major interpretation. The full preterist interpretation. The tribulation occurs in the past, during the first few centuries AD. This tribulation represents the persecution of Christians and the destruction of Jerusalem by the Romans between 66 and 70 AD. The 1260 days of Revelation 11 through 13 corresponds to a literal 1260 days from the beginning of the Jewish war to the destruction of Jerusalem. Jesus Christ returned at the end of the tribulation in the past to raise the saints from paradise to heaven and spiritually rapture the living saints. Full preterism takes literally the time statements in the New Testament that the tribulation and his return would occur shortly and in that generation. Variations of full preterism. The most common variation is that Revelation also describes the fall of Rome. The partial preterist interpretation. The tribulation occurs in the past, during the first few centuries AD. This is the same as full preterism. The tribulation represents the persecution of the Christians and the destruction of Jerusalem by the Romans between 66 and 70 AD. Again, this is the same as full preterism. The 1260 days correspond to a literal 1260 days from the beginning of the Jewish war to the destruction of Jerusalem. Again, the same as full preterism. Jesus Christ will return in the future to literally raise the saints from the dead and rapture the living saints. Here is where partial preterism departs from full preterism and is similar to futurism. The historicist interpretation. The events of the tribulation are spread over many centuries, including events in the past and the present. The 1260 days represent 1260 years and corresponds to the Protestant Reformation. Key to Historicism is the principle that one day in prophecy is equal to 1 year. Some events, including the second return of Christ, are yet to happen in the future, similar to Futurism. Historicism arose out of the Protestant Reformation and was popular for about 3 centuries afterwards. The Futurist interpretation. The tribulation will occur in the future. The tribulation is composed of 2 literal periods of 1260 days, totaling 7 years. This 7 years is the final week of Daniel's 70 weeks, found in Daniel 9, 24 through 27. The second period of 1260 days begins with the revealing of the Antichrist and is a greater period of tribulation than the first. Jesus Christ will return in the future to literally raise the saints from the dead and rapture the living saints. Futurism takes the time statements regarding the tribulation and return figuratively. For example, shortly is relative to God's time and not man's. Variations. The biggest debate among futurists is when the rapture of the saints will occur relative to the tribulation. Some say it's before, some during, some after, and some say there will be multiple raptures. Finally, the idealist interpretation. The events of the tribulation are allegorical, spiritual, or figurative. Therefore, these events are timeless in their application. The 1260 days is symbolic of a period of trial and testing. Variations. Some combine idealism with preterism. That is, they believe the events of Revelation refer to the fall of Jerusalem in the first century, but also have a spiritual application. This concludes Rethinking Revelation, Part 2, Major Interpretations. Please see also Rethinking Revelation, Part 3, Various Interpretations of the Millennium.